What if the life you've been dreaming of is waiting for you to simply ask? In Ask, Align, Attract, you'll uncover how to step out of struggle and into your true power by asking for more, aligning with your purpose, and attracting what you deserve. It's a roadmap for a life you've been waiting to create. Ask, Align, Attract. We live in a world that tells us to settle, to play it safe, to accept what we're given without asking for more. But deep within, there's a part of us that whispers, there has to be more. This book is for those of you who have dared to listen to that whisper, who are ready to take the leap, to ask for what you deserve, and to align with the life you were meant to live. Ask. Align. Attract isn't just about dreaming bigger or wishing harder. It's about making a shift so profound that your reality bends to match your belief. When you ask, truly ask, for something greater, the universe begins to move. When you align your actions, your energy, and your intentions with that ask, the world starts to respond in ways you never imagined. And when you learn how to attract, not through force but through faith and trust in your power, miracles start to unfold. This isn't a book of empty promises. It's a guide for people who are tired of waiting for life to change and ready to make the change themselves. Each chapter is designed to show you how the simple act of asking can spark a ripple effect of transformation. Through real-life stories, powerful truths, and practical tools, you'll learn how to tap into the magic that's always been available to you, waiting for you to claim it. Your ask is your declaration, your alignment is your power, and your ability to attract is limitless. It's time to stop settling and start living with purpose. It's time to ask, align, and attract the life you were meant to live. Reality bends when belief begins. Part 1. Ask. Chapter 1. The Courage to Ask. In a rusting car parked outside a steel mill in Detroit, Marcus Reynolds gripped the wheel like it was the only thing holding him together. 42 years old, soaked in rain, a father who hadn't heard from his son in weeks, and a man who had quietly accepted that life had beaten him down into something small and tired. He had worked the same job for 15 years, swallowed pride with every missed child support payment, and told himself daily that men like him didn't get to dream. But that night, something shifted, not loudly, but deeply, like a whisper, cracking through a wall, and he asked, not anyone in particular, but the universe, God himself, is there more than this? And in that single, breathless ask, a flicker of life returned. He found a truck driving program online later that week, one with scholarships, and 6 months later he was on the road, building something of his own, something that didn't come from desperation but from desire. Because when you ask, even through tears and fear, you tell the world that you still believe something better is possible, and reality bends when belief begins, which is why the smallest question can become the loudest revolution. So if there's a fire left in you, no matter how faint, write down the bold question that lives beneath your silence, the one you've been too afraid to speak, and watch how life starts listening the moment you do. Chapter 2. Ask Like It Matters. Chicago rain hit the pavement in rhythmic sheets as Elena Navarro pressed her journal against the cafe window, watching streaks of city light blur into watercolor sadness. Her pen paused above a tear-soaked page, where she'd written the same quiet ache 100 times. Why not me? Years of failed relationships, empty texts, and nights spent convincing herself that maybe love just wasn't in her story, that maybe some hearts simply missed their turn. But that afternoon, surrounded by the warmth of espresso and strangers, laughter, something in her cracked open, and she didn't just write her hope. She said it out loud, a whisper so soft it startled her. I want love that stays. That moment didn't bring a prince or a cinematic sweep of arms around her waist, but something shifted. The way she walked home with her chin up despite the rain. The way she wore red lipstick the next day without a reason. The way she started treating herself like someone worth choosing. And a month later, while helping a tourist find the red line, she laughed at a joke from a stranger who would later become her partner. Not because she chased love, but because she finally believed she could ask for it like she meant it. And that's the truth most people forget. It's not enough to wish. You must ask like it matters, because reality bends when belief begins. And when your ask carries the weight of your worth, the world starts rearranging itself to meet you. So for the next 7 days, speak your deepest ask out loud each morning, boldly without apology, and let the echo of your voice remind the universe that you're ready to receive. Chapter 3. Closed doors are answers too. The day Jacob Caldwell locked the doors to his startup warehouse in Billings, Montana, the silence hit harder than the debt collectors ever could. He stood alone beneath flickering overhead lights, holding his final paycheck like a funeral folded in paper, and stared at the space where his dream had once breathed, where late nights and risk and belief had lived until the investors pulled out and everything collapsed. He hadn't just lost a business. He lost the version of himself who believed he was born for something more. And for weeks after, he drove aimlessly through Montana's wide, empty roads, asking questions no one answered. Why didn't it work? Why didn't I make it? What now? But pain, it turns out, is a brutal prophet. And on one of those drives, he passed an old school building with a for lease sign, and a flicker of memory came rushing back. Before business, before burnout, before trying to impress people who never clapped, he had loved teaching, mentoring teens in his community, helping them find purpose in chaos. And that day, Jacob walked into that empty school with a new kind of ask, not for money or momentum, but for meaning. 6 months later, he opened a free startup lab for local youth, funded by donors who saw his passion burn brighter than his past, and found that his failed business was never meant to succeed. It was meant to break him open, to pivot his path, to point him home. So if life has slammed a door in your face, don't just stare at the wreckage. Ask what it might be redirecting you toward, because reality bends when belief begins. And rejection often contains an answer deeper than yes ever could. Today, take one rejection you still carry and rewrite it, not as the end of your story, but as the beginning of a better one. Part 2. Align Chapter 4. Becoming before receiving. Before anything in her life looked different, Alana Torres started walking like a woman who had already made it, heels clicking down the cracked sidewalks of her Atlanta neighborhood, head held high even though her account balance barely covered groceries and her job barely covered rent. She was a part-time cashier with a full-time vision, and something inside her snapped the day her dream of owning a wellness studio stopped feeling like fantasy and started feeling like identity. So she made a new rule. She would speak like a business owner, dress like one, eat like one, and show up for herself like her future already depended on it, because it did. Every morning before work, she journaled as if clients were already booking. She posted motivational videos as if thousands were listening, and she practiced yoga in her living room like it was a downtown loft studio with floor-to-ceiling windows. Neighbors laughed at first, but within a year she got certified, then crowdfunded a pop-up class in a local park, and when a former client with deep pockets attended by accident, doors opened fast. It wasn't magic, it was alignment, because the universe doesn't respond to desperation, it responds to embodiment, and reality bends when belief begins. So today, do one small thing, not big, not flashy, just one action that belongs to the version of you who already has what they're asking for, and let your energy rise to meet the life you're ready to live. Chapter 5. Letting go of the Old You. On a subway in New York City, David Harper, a retired Army veteran, sat staring at his reflection in the cracked window, his once proud face now worn with guilt, as if the weight of past mistakes was etched in his skin. The day he had left the service, his world had shattered. He couldn't shake the shame of not being enough, not saving enough, not doing enough, and it clung to him like the cracked mirror he had avoided for months, the one that hung on his bedroom wall, a reminder of everything he believed he had lost. But one cold morning, on a commute as ordinary as any, something inside of him snapped, and instead of looking away from his reflection, he met it head-on. He saw himself, not as the man who had failed, but as the man who was willing to rise, and, as the sun rose outside the train, casting golden light through the window, David realized that he had to let go of the label that had held him captive for so long. Failure. And with that realization, something inside him loosened, and he started rebuilding piece by piece, no longer defined by the old version of himself, but by the man he was choosing to become. Reality bends when belief begins, but it only bends when you stop carrying the old labels that no longer serve you. So right now, take a moment and write down one label you no longer accept, whether it's broken, unworthy, or stuck, and choose to leave it behind. Chapter 6. A Line in the Storm. In the middle of a COVID surge, with hospital hallways packed with the echoes of overwhelmed nurses, doctors, and the harsh beeping of machines, Emily Torres, a dedicated nurse in New York City, found herself standing at the threshold of a patient's room, feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders, a world she couldn't control, filled with fear, loss, and uncertainty. The ICU was a battleground, and each day felt like a test of endurance. Yet in the midst of the chaos, Emily did something simple but profound. Before entering each room, she paused, squeezed her own hand in the cold hallway, and whispered a prayer. That moment, just 3 seconds long, became her anchor. In the midst of the storm, she learned that alignment wasn't about finding calm outside. It was about creating it inside, even when everything else was falling apart. And reality bends when belief begins. So, every day now, she practices a small ritual. 3 minutes of focused breathing, closing her eyes, feeling the breath fill her lungs and release her worries, reminding herself that no matter how heavy the moment, she could always realign with peace, just like you can. Today, take 3 minutes, close your eyes and breathe deeply. Inhale for 4 counts, hold for 4, and exhale slowly for 6. It's a small shift, but in that space you'll find your power to stay centered in the storm. Part 3. Attract. Chapter 7. It finds you when you stop chasing. For years, James Mitchell ran the rat race in Los Angeles. Endless meetings, sleepless nights, the constant hum of ambition and competition. He thought he had it all figured out. Work hard, hustle more, and success would follow. But one Sunday afternoon, after a string of sleepless weeks and a recent failed deal, he stood alone on a trail in Griffith Park, the sun high in the sky, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. It wasn't the kind of peace you find after reaching a goal or hitting a milestone, but the kind that quietly settles when you stop chasing what you've been told you need. In that moment, as the city buzzed below him, James realized that everything he'd been striving for had been running away from him because he'd never stopped to listen to what he truly wanted. Reality bends when belief begins, but only when belief isn't shackled to an agenda. So, he decided to step away from the grind. He didn't quit his job, but he stopped pretending that his worth was tied to constant achievement. And over time, he found his purpose, not in the hustle but in the stillness where the world had always been waiting for him to listen. Now, every day, he carves out time to just be, to sit still, and to listen to what life has to say. And he invites you to do the same. Take 1 hour today to do nothing, step away from the noise, and listen to what is quietly unfolding around you. Chapter 8. Blessings Have No Timeline. At 62, after decades of raising her children, working long hours as a school teacher, and attending her share of weddings and funerals, Grace Thompson found herself sitting alone in the back pew of a candlelit church in Kansas, listening to soft jazz drifting from the altar as the evening light faded into shadows. For the first time in years, she wasn't thinking about the past or planning for a future she thought she'd never share with anyone again. But instead, she held a quiet, fragile hope. Hope that perhaps there was still love left for her, even at her age. And it was then, in that peaceful surrender, that she made a decision, not to rush, not to force it, but to ask for love to come in its own time, in its own way. And when she returned home that night, she opened a dating app on her phone, typing a hesitant message that led to a dinner date with a kind man who had been widowed for 5 years. And though it took months for the pieces to fit together, she found herself, 6 months later, at the same church, now sitting beside him, holding his hand. Because sometimes blessings don't show up on our timeline, but when you make room for them, they arrive just when you're ready, and reality bends when belief begins, which is why your waiting is never wasted. So today, take a moment to journal 3 signs that what you want is already on its way, and trust that you'll be right where you need to be when it arrives. Chapter 9. Overflow Mode. In the heart of New Orleans, under the glow of a modest street lamp outside a bustling soup kitchen, Jake Thompson, once a struggling entrepreneur with nothing but an idea and a laptop, handed a bag of warm food to a homeless man, the kind of act he never saw coming when he first dreamed of starting his tech company. He had spent years chasing success, believing that only once he made it could he give back. But something in that moment shifted. Watching the man's eyes light up over something as simple as a meal, he realized that giving was the real currency. And not just for the rich, it was for the ones who understood that the flow of abundance starts the moment you stop waiting to have it all and start sharing what you can. Within months of that moment, Jake's startup went viral, the team grew, and his life took turns he could never have planned. Because when you give first, when you decide your life isn't just about receiving, it's like you tap into a deeper well of energy, one that flows freely and abundantly when you choose to flow it into others. And reality bends when belief begins, proving that the overflow you seek isn't about what's in your hands, but what you give away first. So this week, before you ask for anything, give anonymously, just once, and feel what happens when you start to create more than you need. Chapter 10. This is just the beginning. As Marcus Reynolds drives through the busy streets of Detroit now, his truck hauling goods to a new job site, his reflection in the rearview mirror reminds him of a man who once asked himself if there was more than this. Today, his life is full of possibilities he never believed he could have. And his son is calling him every week. Across the country, Melanie Torres in Atlanta wakes up to the sound of birds outside her window. Her dreams no longer tied to survival but to creation, as she and her family prepare for their first vacation together since the day she dared to ask for more love, more life. There's Thomas from New York, a former stockbroker who found his calling as a yoga instructor, and Sarah in Los Angeles, who quit her soul-crushing job to start her own business, thriving in a way she once thought was impossible. These stories, along with so many others, prove that when you ask with intention, align with purpose, and attract from a place of belief, the universe will respond, opening doors you never saw before. And it's not just a one-time shift. It's a lifelong journey, each day building upon the last. This is just the beginning of a wave of transformation that's waiting for you too. So today, before you close this chapter, Take a moment to write your own ask, align, attract story, beginning right now. What are you asking for? How will you align with it? And what would it look like if the world responded today? This is your beginning, your invitation to a future that's already calling. Conclusion. As you stand here now, having read through the stories, the practices, the shifts in belief, you might feel a quiet fire stirring inside, a sense that what you've learned in these pages isn't a destination but a beginning. Because this is not the end of your journey, it's only the start. The ask, the alignment, and the attraction will continue to unfold as you take each step forward, sometimes stumbling, sometimes soaring, but always moving in the direction of your desires. You've learned that asking isn't about begging for what you want, but boldly claiming what you deserve. Aligning isn't about forcing the world to bend to you, but about becoming the version of yourself who is already worthy of your dreams. And attracting? That's the natural outcome of living in harmony with both. Remember, reality bends when belief begins, but belief is a practice, a daily choice, an ongoing commitment to living the life you've asked for. So, as you walk away from this book, don't stop asking. Don't stop aligning. Don't stop attracting. And when life asks, what do you want? Answer boldly with the unshakable confidence that it is already on its way to you. Your journey isn't just about what you manifest, but who you become along the way. And the best part? The story is far from over.